Okay, today we're looking at figuring out how to find a perpendicular bisector. So we're given a line segment from A to B, okay, so from here to here, and we're given the coordinates of that line segment. We're trying to find a line that is perpendicular to this segment and bisects it. Okay, so it's called a perpendicular bisector. So a perpendicular bisector is a line that bisects a line segment. What do you think it means to bisect something? To cut in half, right? Cut in half. Okay, divide into two equal parts. How do you find a point that divides a segment into two equal parts? What's that point called? We just talked about it. A midpoint. Good. Okay, the midpoint will bisect the line, but it also has to be a line that's perpendicular to the other line segment. So on the other page, I had a line that looked like this. We need to figure out where the midpoint is, and we need to draw a line that bisects that, but is also perpendicular. What do you remember about the word perpendicular, Irvin? What does it form? A perpendicular line. It forms a 90-degree angle. Okay, so perpendicular, it intersects at a 90-degree or a right angle. So we need to come up with the equation of this pink line here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the other page. What do you remember about two lines that are perpendicular? Anything you can remember from grade 9? Yep. The slopes are reciprocal. Good. If two lines are perpendicular, if they intersect at a 90-degree angle, their slopes are negative reciprocals. Negative reciprocals. Okay, so for example, if the slope of this line, okay, I'm just drawing a random line. Let's say the slope was negative 3 over 4. Okay, and let's say I draw a line perpendicular. What? If it's perpendicular, what does the slope of the blue line have to be? If I'm giving you the slope of the black line, well, reciprocal, what do you do with the fraction? Flip it, so it becomes 4 over 3, and because this one's negative, the other one is positive. It's the opposite sign. For example, the slope of this line was, I don't know, 2. Okay, how can I write that as a fraction? 2 over 1. Then a line perpendicular to this would have to have a slope of negative 1 over 2. Good. It's always the opposite sign, and the fraction is flipped around. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to find a line that will bisect this, so somewhere in the middle, and will be perpendicular. We need to come up with the equation of the perpendicular bisector. So what's the first thing you think you need to figure out? What do we know about perpendicular lines? Yeah, what do we need to find? Okay, we need to find the slope and the midpoint, right? Okay, so let's start with finding the slope so we know part of the equation. Okay, we need to find the slope of AB from our graph. That way we can figure out what the slope of the perpendicular bisector would be. Sorry, that's not drawn properly. The perpendicular bisector, because it has to have a slope that's a negative reciprocal. So let's use the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Let's call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, plug it in. y2 minus y1, so 2 minus 8 over 5 minus 1, and simplify. 2 take away 8. Negative 6 over positive 4. Let's put this into lowest terms. What can both of these be divided by? 2. Divide by 2, so it becomes negative 3 over 2. This is the slope of the pink line, the line that we were given the coordinates for. So if the slope of AB is negative 3 over 2, a line that runs perpendicular to this has to have a slope of what? Positive or negative? Positive 2 over 3. So we're almost there. We need to come up with the whole equation. And as of now, we know the slope. We know so far that the slope, let's make this green, of this perpendicular bisector is y equals, what, 2 over 3?
Yeah.
2 over 3x plus b, right? We need to know a coordinate. We don't know the y-intercept because I haven't drawn this properly. We need to actually graph it properly, but I don't know the y-intercept. But we can figure out a coordinate. We can figure out a point on this perpendicular bisector because we know that it's going to pass through what point? It's going to pass through the midpoint, exactly. Somewhere around here, I didn't measure it, but we're going to figure out where that point is. Okay, so now we have to find the midpoint of AB because that's going to be a point on the perpendicular bisector. We need to find the midpoint because we know that's going to be a point on the perpendicular bisector. So we're going to take the two x coordinates, x1 and x2, add them together and divide by 2. That will give us the first part of the coordinate. Then we're going to take the two y coordinates, add them together and divide by 2. That will give us the y value of the coordinate. Okay, we're adding the x values together and dividing by 2 and the y values together and dividing by 2. 1 plus 5 is 6. 10 over 2. Let's simplify this. 3, 5. This is the coordinate where the midpoint of AB is, and it's also a point on the perpendicular bisector. We just found that the midpoint's at 3, 5. Well, I had a rough estimate here. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like I pretty much graphed it almost exactly on the midpoint. This point is a point that lies on my perpendicular bisector. So now I can use that coordinate, use the slope, which we found, and find B, because I need to come up with the equation. We're trying to come up with the equation of this line, of the perpendicular bisector. We know y is 5, so let's replace y with the number 5. X is 3. Now, when you're multiplying a whole number by a fraction, how do I rewrite this as a fraction? Thank you. You guys did not do this properly on your test, some of you. How do I multiply these fractions?
So you have to convert it into like terms.
So, no, multiplying fractions, all you have to do is multiply 2 times 3.
And 3 times 1.
And 3 times 1.
I'm actually
okay?
so...
Let's simplify this. What's 6 divided by 3? 2. I need to solve for b, so I need to get rid of this. Positive 2 becomes negative 2. 5 take away 2?
3.
b equals 3. Therefore, the equation of the perpendicular bisector is what? Y equals 2 over 3x plus now I know b
This is actually so easy.
3.
Made with Doodlecast Pro.